Peg will do anything to get out of her hometown of Buffalo and follow her dreams, including hustling in the underground world of debt collecting. One day, Peg was presenting a business plan to her mom, Kathy, and her brother, JJ. They found it amusing and laughed, even as Peg pleaded with her mom for some startup funds. Unfortunately, her mother refused, grew upset, and instructed Peg to sit down for dinner instead. While watching TV, Peg's focus was singular, figuring out how to get rich. Unlike other kids who simply asked their parents for allowance, Peg dived into trading, becoming obsessed with money. Peg's ambition wasn't just to learn about profit margins. She aimed to emulate Warren Buffett, aspiring to attend an Ivy League college, make her way to Wall Street, and amass wealth. Peg's entrepreneurial spirit led her to sell cigarettes at school for $1 each. During one sale, a man demanded a cigarette for free and threatened her. Undeterred, Peg stood her ground and retaliated physically. The school principal intervened, and Peg hid her earnings in her car's trunk. Back home, after calculating her profits, her brother presented her with a box for her money stash. Suddenly, her mother exclaimed with joy, announcing that Peg had been accepted into a prestigious university. The family celebrated this achievement, recognizing it as a significant milestone. However, with the passing of Peg's father, the family faced financial challenges. Her mother proposed taking out loans to finance Peg's education, but Peg declined, unwilling to be burdened with debt for 4 years. Peg believed her father would have found a way to finance her education without loans. The following day, Peg was determined to make sales by selling tickets. However, Peg's approach was unethical, as she chose to sell counterfeit tickets to finance her education. Unfortunately, the police caught wind of her actions and accused Peg of disrespecting the sacred land of Buffalo. Despite her attempts to escape, Peg was apprehended. In court, Peg faced a lawyer named Graham, who stated that her actions constituted a serious crime, potentially carrying a minimum of 40 years behind bars. Graham represented the affected parties, and ultimately, Peg was convicted and sentenced to 3 years for her ticket forgery. On her first day in prison, Peg attempted to sell her goods to fellow inmates, including the main vendor, known as the backer. This move immediately led to a confrontation with the backer, who dominated the prison's informal economy. After a physical altercation with the backer, Peg reached out to her mother, only to be met with comparisons to her brother JJ, who had successfully started his own bar business. Moreover, Peg's legal troubles had financial repercussions for her family. Lawyers, unpaid fines, and demands for compensation from Peg's victims put a significant strain on the family's finances, exacerbating their troubles and deepening the debts they needed to settle on Peg's behalf. Peg couldn't understand why her family was still facing difficulties after her conviction and imprisonment had been settled. Frustrated, she yelled and banged on her phone, which prompted a police officer to warn her against damaging the provided facilities. The following day, Peg devoted her time in prison to reading books about wealth accumulation. Suddenly, a guard informed her of her release, though Peg worried about her future prospects in securing a job or loan due to her criminal record. Upon returning home, her mother, Kathy, immediately pressed her to get a job, overwhelmed by the constant visits from debt collectors. Seeing his sister's plight, JJ offered her a cleaning job at his bar. On her first day, Peg struggled with cleaning tasks, including unclogging a vacuum cleaner, signaling a challenging start to her new job. During a light-hearted exchange with JJ reminiscent of their sibling camaraderie, a patron felt disturbed by their banter. This patron, who approached JJ and Peg to complain, turned out to be Graham, the lawyer from Peg's trial. After realizing their relationship, Graham attempted to make amends, but Peg, still resentful from the trial, showed no interest in reconciling, especially not over drinks with the man responsible for her imprisonment. Their awkward encounter was interrupted by the arrival of the police, drawing Graham away, and coincidentally, Peg received a call from a debt collector amidst the chaos, underscoring the ongoing pressures and complexities in her life post-release. The debt collector informed Peg that she needed to settle her outstanding debt of $30,000 immediately, offering a $5,000 discount if she paid that very day. Intrigued by the conversation, Peg inquired about the profession of debt collection and expressed her interest in pursuing a career as a debt collector. The following day, Peg visited the debt collection agency and met with the head of the agency, Viz. Impressed by Peg's negotiation skills, Viz decided to show her around the office and explain the operations. Viz emphasized that the job involved more than just making phone calls, it required confronting debtors in person. Peg then proposed a deal. If she ranked top on the performance board within a month, Viz would cancel her remaining debt. Viz announced to his team that Peg could outperform them, which initially led to laughter and skepticism. Embracing this challenge, Peg began her role as a debt collector. Her first task involved contacting a college student named Dahl, who owned an expensive car but refused to pay his debt. Peg resorted to using intimidation tactics, threatening to inform Dahl's mother and girlfriend of his debt. Fearful of tarnishing his reputation, Dahl quickly arranged to pay off his debt. As days passed, Peg effectively employed these tactics to collect debts, proving her competence in the field. Peg quickly rose to the top spot among the debt collectors at her workplace, clearing her own debt in just a week. When her mother called, having not seen her for weeks, Peg shared that she had landed a job that helped lighten other people's financial burdens. One assignment required Peg to pursue a debt that had been outstanding for 20 years. She reached out to an elderly woman who had been neglecting her debt for 2 decades. Despite the woman's initial refusal to pay, Peg didn't back down. The following day, Peg visited the elderly woman's residence and warned that the debt could affect her descendants for up to 7 generations. Faced with this grim prospect, the woman agreed to settle a $220,000 debt, not wanting to leave a burden for her family. Upon collecting the payment, Peg met with Viz at a bar where he was playing pool. Viz expressed pride in Peg's accomplishment. However, he then revealed that the elderly woman's debt had been cleared long ago, but due to her forgetfulness, he had exploited her condition for additional money. When Peg asked about her commission, Viz handed her only $2,000, which puzzled her given her top performance in debt collection. Viz dismissed her concerns, suggesting that as a newcomer, Peg should not expect more and must simply follow orders. Later at the bar, Peg encountered Graham again, who invited her to dine with him, but she declined, upset by the day's events. Viz interrupted, insisting Peg take a drink, treating her more like a subordinate than a valued employee. Fed up with being treated unfairly and disillusioned by the deceitful business tactics, Peg declared she was quitting her job then and there. She left the bar with Graham, heading back to her house, determined to leave behind a job that conflicted with her principles. Graham revealed to Peg that his presence at the bar was part of an investigation into fraudulent activities by a debt collection firm. His goal was to scrutinize illegal practices within the debt collection industry, which included operations he wasn't fully aware of. This discussion prompted Peg to consider the legal boundaries within which debt collectors must operate. Inspired by what she learned, Peg came up with the idea to start her own debt collection agency. She saw an opportunity to collaborate with Graham, hoping his knowledge and insights could help ensure her business operated within legal confines. The next morning, Peg shared her plans with her partner, who was immediately against the idea, fearing the potential risks and even threatened to end their relationship over it. Undeterred by her partner's reaction, Peg proceeded with her plan to establish her own agency after parting ways with Viz. She began recruiting former colleagues from Viz's firm, promising better earnings, and even persuaded individuals she met randomly, like a talented conversationalist or the owner of a small salon, to join her venture, converting the salon into their office space. Peg also visited a former inmate backer who she had encountered in prison. Initially, Backer assumed Peg sought revenge but was surprised to learn of her invitation to join the new debt collection business. Once she assembled her team, Peg briefed them on ethical debt collection techniques and strategies, naming the agency Private Funding Collection. The aim was to build wealth by addressing debt issues through phone negotiations. Peg's debt collection agency was thriving, catching the attention of her former employer, Viz, who saw her success as a declaration of war. Viz, feeling challenged, made a threatening call to Peg, signaling the start of hostilities before abruptly hanging up. Despite this, Peg and her team continued their work, focusing on ethical debt collection practices that led to the smooth operation of their business. One day, while Peg's office was buzzing with activity, there was a sudden blackout, and all forms of communication were disrupted. Backer, investigating the cause, spotted a man sabotaging their power supply before escaping. Additionally, some of Peg's employees faced confrontations with Viz's henchmen on their way home. Following these incidents, Viz personally threatened Peg, leaving her in a state of anger and determination. Peg then contacted Graham for support, inviting him to dinner to discuss the situation. As resources began to dwindle, with all paper supplies used up for paying employee commissions, Backer warned Peg of the operational challenges ahead. Seeking to relieve some of the stress caused by Viz's harassment, Peg organized a football match outing for her employees, hoping to provide a brief respite. During the match, while Peg was alone, she encountered a disturbing form of intimidation. A note with a vile message was left for her, followed by an appalling act where she was doused with blood. Upon Peg's return, her team fell silent, shocked by her appearance, recognizing that Viz's latest intimidation tactic was far too severe. Backer speculated that if they were being watched at the football match, it likely meant their office was left unguarded and vulnerable to Viz's mischief. Driven by urgency, they hurried back to the office, only to discover everything in chaos and the crucial debt documents missing. Without these documents, their ability to operate was severely hampered. In a bid to confront Viz, Peg headed to her brother's bar, where she learned that her mother had used the bar as collateral in a deal with Viz, effectively transferring ownership to him. Viz mockingly suggested that Peg would now need to find a way to purchase new paper for her business. Meanwhile, Peg asked her mother to style her hair for an important dinner engagement. At the same time, Graham was wrapping up his day when he unexpectedly encountered Peg in conversation with Henrietta outside his office. Seizing the moment, Peg extended a dinner invitation to Graham, aiming to present her business records as evidence of her company's legitimacy. Peg requested Graham to send his staff home for the day, signaling the start of their private discussion and the evening ahead. Peg quickly contacted the police to report that Viz's firm had been making threats against their clients. Shortly thereafter, the police arrived at Viz's location and detained his associates. Taking advantage of the situation, Peg instructed her team to retrieve the stolen billing documents from Viz's office. With the documents back in their possession, Peg's business resumed its operations smoothly. However, the peace was short-lived as Viz, now released, ominously warned Peg over the phone that he considered their business rivalry akin to warfare and hinted at further schemes to undermine her. Alarmed by his threats, Peg found herself under significant stress. In response to her distress, one of her employees offered her a firearm for protection, which Peg reluctantly accepted. Later, seeking reconciliation, Peg invited her brother JJ to dinner, hoping to apologize and propose him as her first investor for potential expansion. JJ declined the investment opportunity, content with owning just one bar, leaving Peg feeling misunderstood and used after attempting to discuss Viz's scheming. The next day, after a routine day at the office, Peg noticed a suspicious vehicle parked outside her home. After a closer inspection, she discovered Graham inside the car. Upset by his stealthy surveillance, Peg confronted him, leading to a heated argument. Amidst their dispute, Kathy, Peg's mother, invited them to join her for a meal, turning the situation into an impromptu family dinner. At the dinner table, Kathy inquired about how Peg and Graham first met, learning about Graham's role as the prosecutor in Peg's case. The conversation then shifted to Graham's opinion on Peg's methods of earning a living, bringing the ethical dimensions of their work and relationship into focus. Kathy believed Graham was a principled individual, whereas Peg defended her business, emphasizing that she was only reclaiming funds from individuals who were aware they had not repaid their borrowed money. However, Kathy expressed her desire for Peg to shut down the debt collection agency, citing its harmful impact on people. Graham shared a personal story about his grandfather, who lost his home due to unpaid medical bills and subsequently passed away before the family could reclaim their property, adding depth to the debate over the morality of debt collection. Amidst the discussion, JJ arrived, visibly injured, explaining he had been attacked by Viz's associates. This led Kathy to blame Peg for provoking Viz, suggesting that her actions had now endangered the family. In frustration, Peg discarded a buffalo head decoration, a move her mother protested, emphasizing the buffalo had never been a source of conflict and should be respected. Later, as Graham discovered a bill in his room, the police arrived, unexpectedly arresting Kathy for allegedly operating an unlicensed debt collection business. Viz soon contacted Peg, gloating over her distress and promising further turmoil. In a fit of rage, Peg stormed Viz's office, where, in a moment of clarity amidst her anger, she fired a gun into the air instead of at a person. When she confronted Viz, the situation escalated until Graham arrived with the police, leading to Peg's arrest for the misuse of the firearm. At the police station, Peg resolved to find a lawyer for her mother, recognizing the harm her business had brought upon their family. Now, facing legal repercussions herself, Peg contemplated the consequences of her actions on both her and her family's lives. Peg, tearfully questioning the morality of pursuing her wealth-building dream, received a reflective response from Kathy. Kathy confessed she once harbored similar aspirations, which were put aside to focus on her family and cope with Peg's father's gambling issues. This confession left Peg to ponder alone as Kathy withdrew. In the days that followed, Peg faced trial for her actions involving a firearm. Surprisingly, she was acquitted, largely believed to be due to Graham's intervention. Despite her acquittal, Peg attempted to make amends, directing her team to unite various debt collection agencies for a significant meeting at JJ's bar. Peg proposed forming a collective union of agencies to streamline their operations and avoid police scrutiny. This suggestion initially met resistance but ultimately led to a consensus among the agencies. However, as they were about to select a leader, an eavesdropping device was discovered, betraying their plans to the authorities. As police moved in to arrest the gathered debt collectors, Graham intervened, arguing that Peg's actions warranted legal consequences, given the tangible threats and evidence collected by law enforcement. In a heated moment, Peg assaulted Graham and destroyed crucial evidence at his office, incinerating documents related to the debt collection. Ultimately, Peg, along with 40 other debt collectors, was incarcerated, facing charges built upon her own confession and the considerable financial impact of her debt cancellation actions. While in prison, Peg didn't stop her financial education, giving presentations on finance. Upon her release, she was warmly greeted by her mother, and they shared a joyful reunion. Once home, Peg was touched to find a welcome-back party organized by her employees, including Graham. During the celebration, Peg shared how prison had been a period of learning and reflection for her. JJ then surprised her with an envelope, a collective contribution from everyone to offer Peg a fresh start. Unsure of her next steps, Peg excused herself to contemplate in solitude. Returning with a decision, Peg announced her intention to discuss global investment opportunities with them. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.